Welcome to Grief and Gratitude Podcast. We're your hosts, Mandy and Crystal.
This is a space for honest conversations about loss, healing, and everything in between. Each week, we share stories, perspectives, and moments that remind us that even in the hardest seasons, gratitude can still exist. Thank you for sharing space with us. We're really glad you're here. Hey everyone, welcome back to Grief and Gratitude. This is episode 19? 18? I'm not sure.
18.
18.
18.
Oh my gosh, Amanda, get with it.
I know. This is going to be our last episode for season 1. And I will let Crystal introduce our guests.
Hello. So we are back. This is going to be our final episode of season 1. Mandy is here in Vermont with me. Yes, we are very excited to have Babetta back. She was our 9th episode, who spoke about a relationship and the grief and gratitude that goes along with that. We now have her back today. Babetta has also started her own podcast, which we highly recommend. It's Besidedeathlife. And she's here today to speak about her father. Babetta, thank you for coming back.
Awesome. Thank you, girls. I love this new world of meeting people online and creating these friendships across the coast as far as we're concerned. Girls are on the East Coast and I'm on the West Coast. So very, very good. I am so glad to have this opportunity to talk about my father. And here it is, almost Father's Day. And he actually died on Father's Day when I was 21, and I'm 46 now. So it's pretty wild to say that in my lifetime, anything happened 25 years ago. That said, I've never actually talked about him. And so this is going to be a really special moment, maybe with some tears. I'd like to start back at our relationship because that's where it all begins, right? A brief introduction to my family is my mother had me at the age of 17, so she's my biological mother, and I was raised by my maternal grandmother and her second husband, Kenneth, who is my father. So I was raised by my grandparents, but I did not know they were my grandparents until a little bit later in life. So I had older parents than everybody. And it took me a really long time. We'll come back to that gratitude piece later, but to find gratitude for a lot of stuff that I felt kind of odd about growing up, like having much older parents than everyone else. That said, I had this idyllic childhood. My mother was my Girl Scout leader. She also ran her own business. They were both artists. They were both commercial artists. My father was a commercial artist, and I was definitely daddy's little girl. Like, not every day did he come home with candy, which my mother hated, but a lot. And his hobbies range from auto mechanics to carpentry. So I grew up him teaching me not only how to drive and change a tire and check your oil, but also just like building things. I had a really cute memory recently pop up of I wanted to take some weird animal because we always had these like little wild animals that we'd bring in and take care of. I wanted to take one to school, and he's like, and I'm trying to figure out how to take it to school. Let's just say it was a rat. I don't know. And he's like, well, we'll build a cage. So he would take pieces of wood and mesh and things to make a handle. And of course, he wanted me to do it with him. So we would, build a cage for this little animal, and I would take it to school. But needless to say, he was like my best friend. I learned a lot from both of my parents, but my dad was, like I said, it was like daddy's little girl. He was my like who I complained to my mother about. I mean, complained about my mother too. And he would say, you shouldn't talk that way about your mom. But he would also listen to me. Just to give you a walkthrough of kind of like what this looked like, is I had this idyllic childhood. Everybody's around, everybody's doing everything. And then at 11 years old, my mother comes in to tell me at night, where secrets are told in the dark. And she's like, by the way, your dad and I are not your parents. And I'm your grandmother. He's my second husband. So he's like your step grandfather. And your sister is your mom. And I'm like, what? But it wasn't really mind blowing. It made a lot of sense. I thought, okay, this makes so much sense. You guys are way older than my friend's parents. And I was very interested in my biological mother, as in like what she was doing in her life. So anyway, at 11, that was a really big year for me. I had ACL knee surgery. I got my period, and my parents told me they weren't my parents. So there was definitely this shift from this idyllic little bubble childhood to now. And as you know, just like as one is maturing, like starting to think a little deeper on things. And it's a lot for a young person to process. At the same time, to give you some idea of like how I end up having this very conflicted, disenfranchised grief now that my father's gone with him, is I was being told stories about my father by my mother of him being abusive to her and to her older children, or my, really my biological mom and my aunts. So he was an alcoholic for most of his life. He was 12 years older than my mother. And when I was 4, and I have a faint memory of this, he had taken me to Showbiz. You know, what is that? It's like Chuck E. Cheese out here. I don't even know that Showbiz is still a thing. And he had a pickup truck, and it's 1984. So it's a bench seat, and I don't have a seatbelt on. And somebody pulls out in front of him just in the parking lot. So we couldn't have been going very fast. But I kind of flew forward and busted my lip on the dashboard. And that's the last time he has a drink for the rest of his life. So he stops drinking at the age of 4. I was essentially raised by myself as an only child in the house because everybody was so much older. So by the time I was 6, my closest adopted sibling was 18 and out of the house. So I'm getting these stories that my mother should have been telling a therapist. Instead she's telling a child, and a child that very much loves her father and has a beautiful, amazing relationship with her father. So at a very young age, I am struggling quietly in secret with who this man is. Like, is he this incredible, amazing, beautiful man that I know? Or is he this monster that I don't know, that I've heard stories about? So at 11, when I'm told that they're not my parents, I'm also told I have to keep the secret within the family. So the whole family knows who I am. And now I know who I am, but I still have to keep up my adopted position, right? They're my parents. My mom and my biological mother and her sisters are my sisters. It's just like this whole funky web. And it all ends up mattering because as we move through the years, so from like 11 to 16, I start misbehaving, right? I'm out like drinking beer at my neighbor's house that we steal out of her dad's refrigerator at 12, probably, and I'm smoking weed by 13. So I spend the next few years really self-medicating as a young person, not just because it was cool, but like I couldn't fit the pieces together in my mind of what the hell was going on with my family and who I was supposed to be. So I'm having like, as I'm maturing into or going through puberty, I'm having an existential, like this identity crisis. And I had been a very, very, very shy child. And I realized that didn't really serve me. So I kind of created this alter ego, this identity of this girl who was like very outgoing, and I searched for friendships and so forth, and a lot of those friendships were made with the crowd of people who were getting high and drinking and going out and doing risky stuff, because that spoke to my the chaos that I had going on in my head. And I have a really sad memory of probably right around 16. I think I had started driving, and my dad had given me like a Valentine's stuffed animal card, chocolate something. And I was busy getting high. Like, I didn't care really about anything. And I had thrown it in the trunk of my car, like maybe it was hatchback or something. I just remember this scene. It's nighttime. And I think I had something wrong with my car. He was always helping me with stuff. And he came out to my car, and I opened the trunk, not realizing that I had thrown his gift in the back. And I just watched and felt him, like his heart totally sink when he saw it. Like he was realizing that their decisions, were really affecting me. And not long after, somewhere around, I don't have like the timeline, but right around then, I'm 16, and my mom comes to me and she says, "Hey, we're going to have a family meeting." This is not the kind of family that has family meetings. So I was like, okay, well, it's weird. We sit down at the dining room table, and she's like, "Your dad wants to tell you something." And I remember him not speaking. So she must have gone on and said it. And she said, "Your dad wants a divorce. The IRS is after him, and he's dying of cancer." And I was like, excuse me, what? The divorce part was not shocking to me, even though my parents did not argue in front of me. They were really good about that. But I had a bedroom upstairs. Like, I could hear them arguing downstairs. So for, I would say probably most of my life, I could hear, them not getting along. I think they had different political parties. They were both artists that highly, were critical of each other. And there was a lot of stuff going on in the background, right? Within the family system. So the IRS being after him, he had a gambling problem. So I was told a little bit later, like he would, again, like at night in strange rooms in the city, would be doing like undercover gambling with kind of these big wigs in the industry. I don't know. He owned car dealerships. He owned furniture businesses. He owned a lot of different things, and he lost it all. And maybe it was around that time they lost it. I'm not totally sure. I also find out a little bit later, just kind of, this gives you a picture of his gambling issues and his deal with money. And I'm sure a lot of the tension in between my parents is that I found out at some point while I was in high school, he was a night janitor at my high school. Didn't know it. He was doing a lot of odd jobs just to bring some money in. And this man was like, at that point, he had to have been in his 60s, I think, like late 50s, early 60s. So my mother was the breadwinner. Anyway, and then the cancer part. So he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and that was my first. I'd had other people die prior to this in my life, but that was my first lesson in do what you want to do in your life, because I could see nobody had to explain it to me, but he got his terminal diagnosis and he's like, that's it. I don't want to live in this marriage for whatever time I have left, even though I have this child, that I love. He wanted to go live his life, the rest of it, without arguing with my mom all the time or whatever. So that was really interesting. I wasn't mad about any of that. And he was super cool. He's like, you stay in the family house with your mom. And he went and got an apartment up the street, like in the same neighborhood, so that I could walk and hang out with him. But remember, I'm 16. I'm loving the drugs and the alcohol, and going to visit my dad and hang out was drinking coffee, playing solitaire, each our own game next to each other, and smoking cigarettes. And it was like, these are some of my fondest memories. He really, I think, embraced understanding, like grappling with mortality. Unfortunately, a lot of people end up doing that at that end stage of like, you get a mortality check or somebody's already gone, or, you get to the bottom. But I mean, kind of messy here. So some other things is I was ditching school. I was ditching high school to like get high and or just, not be there. There was so much going on. And he said to me, he's like, if you ever want to, I'll take you to breakfast, if you ever want to meet up or go have coffee. And so I'd be ditching a glass. I'd call him and I'd be like, Dad, you want to get coffee at Jimmy's Egg? And you could smoke in this place. So we were sitting there. Like, I grew up with him smoking in the house, and I'm not a regular smoker. I never have been, but I do love to have a cigarette every once in a while. So in high school, here I am ditching class and smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee with my dad. It was awesome. And he, to the very end, I would come in and bitch about my mom, be like, she's doing that and that. And he's like, don't talk about your mother that way. But he would still let me, vent. And then I want to say I was 17. He had got me my first couple of cars. When I was 15, in the driveway waiting for me was a 71 yellow Super Beetle, and it never ran. Like, he never did get the engine working. So by the time I'm 16, I get a 72 high top camper Volkswagen bus. And I know I'm reeling this back a little. Well, I wrecked that bus, like total it one day. That's a whole other story. But anyway, he had purchased both of those. He's like, you are going to have to figure out, the next one. Well, I wanted another bus. I worked a couple of jobs. I've always worked. And I bought another bus, another 72, but it wasn't a high top camper. So anyway, I had this Volkswagen bus. And I've already been on a couple of road trips. My parents know I love to road trip. And he's like, let's go on a road trip. I'm like, well, aren't you kind of sick? I would take care of him, even though he lived out of the house. I would go take care of him at his apartment sometimes. And then as things progressed, he came back to our family home a couple of times, like came back and lived a few times. I'll get to that in just a minute. But at 17, he's like, I'd like to go on a last road trip with you. Okay. So we pile in my Volkswagen bus. This man is like very sick and kind of crumpled over. And we hit all these spots. He takes me to a casino. I get kicked off the floor, like the first penny slot that I'm putting money into. And, I meet him back at the room at the end of the night. I didn't care. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the greatest lesson though for gambling, even though he had a terrible time with it, that he told me, he's like, you have to pick your dollar amount that you're going to go in the casino with, and that's all you get. It's like, he gave me $20. He's like, that's all you get. That's it. When it's out, it's out. I don't think that's how he was gambling though. But so we're on this road trip, we're having amazing conversations, and we're in a hotel one night. And he kind of breaks down and apologizes for the torment, if you will, that the decisions that he and my mother made as far as how they handled everything with me about my adoption and so forth. He apologized for it being such a mess for me. And that was a really poignant moment. There's one thing I forgot to add somewhere around that time when they told me that they weren't my parents. And it was like, they're like, in a couple of days, we have to go to a lawyer's office so we can adopt you. And I was like, okay. So I remember this office very clearly. It's like a conference room with a long table, and there's a stack of papers at the end and a guy in a suit. And the guy in the suit comes over to me. I'm there with my mother and father. And he's like, okay, we're going to need you. I need you to verbally agree and then sign on these papers that it's okay for them to adopt you. And I was like, well, in my mind, I'm like, well, what happens if I say no? Am I ward of the state? Do I go back to my biological mom? What happens? So it was just, and I was told that the reason that happened is because of money and because of my dad. So because he was so much older, at that time he was able to collect social security, but that he would get more money if he had a dependent under 18. But because I wasn't adopted, so I got adopted so that they could have a little bit more money. And I grew up in like an upper middle class home, thanks to my mother, I guess. But it didn't make any sense to me. And these were things I was being told, right? So it's like there was a lot of messiness going around. So we're on this road trip. He tells me, he apologizes for everything. And I turn 18 at the end of my junior year. And because I had been messing around in school, I had some summer school to be doing so that I could graduate. And I'm in a summer school class, and there's a girlfriend of mine sitting in front of me, and she's passing me a note. It's so cute. Paper notes, what? And she says it. She's like, my mom and I are leaving, after school to go see, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Some chick that looks like Jess Joplin. I can't think of her name right now. And I was super jealous. Stevie Nicks. I was like, well, I want to go somewhere. And so I wrote her a note back. I'm like, hey, do you want to get out of here and go help me pack my bus? And she's like, yeah, cool. So I take this chick with me to my house. Zero plan. I got my dog, my guitar, some clothes. This is 1998. I do not have a cell phone. I think I got rid of my drug beeper. I did not have any extra Motorola in translucent burgundy. So many stories. Anyway. And I take off for Eureka Springs, Arkansas. It's a place that my parents had taken me on vacations, little mountain town, little hippie mountain town. And the last time I had been there was with my mother, and I'd met these hippie kids hanging out in the square and made friends with them. Like, they took me to the lake. I, went off and had a date. So I thought in my mind, I was like, well, surely I can just meet people and I'll figure it out. But I didn't leave a note for my parents. I left nothing. So I had this very mad at the world, fuck you guys for lying to me. It was still having to keep who I was a secret despite everything, and my dad's dying. And my mother is falling into like this quiet depression. Like, she goes to work all day and then comes home and the television is on the whole time that she's there. I would go turn it off in the middle of the night and wake her up and turn it back on. That's why I haven't had television since my childhood home. I was like, that was so traumatizing to me, because I would also like go be like, hey, and here is a teenager wanting to talk to your parent. You would think the parent would be like, oh my God, tell me, what do you want? But she would just, it was like better door than a window. Her depression and whatever was very, focused on it being coping in that way, with television and food. I didn't grow up with anybody drinking in my house. So anyway, I moved to Eureka Springs. I do meet some hippie kids in the square. I do move into this hippie house, and I get a job washing dishes at this Indian restaurant, like in a basement down all of these stairs. And I get my own place, a carriage house. It's all these Victorian homes in this really hilly area. And I have this car. Anyway, at some point the car needs something, and I've probably been gone a couple weeks, and I call home. And my dad's like, your mother's furious. She won't talk to you. I was like, well, Dad, my car's broken. He's like, I'll come out and fix it. He goes, but here's the deal. I'll send you what I get for you in Social Security money if you enroll in school. If you're going to stay there, I want you to enroll in school for your senior year, and I'll give you the money. So I enrolled. That's a whole other story. He sends me the money. I'm working this job. He comes out and fixes my car. We hang out. I eventually leave like 3 or 4 months later because I was 18 and come home, and my dad has moved back into our family home. He's in need of care. So my mom asked me, she's like, I'm still working. Can you take care of him in the morning, before work, and then I'll take care of it, or during the day. I'm sorry. Can you take care of him during the day while I'm at work? So I said, okay, but I'm going to work outside of that. So I got a job at a coffee shop opening in the morning at like 4 a.m. and I'd be home by the time she went to work. And then when she got home from work, I went to a restaurant job because my plan was not to stay there. And they continued to argue and so forth. It was just kind of a hostile environment. So by December, by like Christmas time that year, I said, you guys are choosing this to live like this. And I don't have to. I'm fixing up my bus. It needs some repairs, and I'm leaving. So I left in February of 1999. I would meet who would end up being the father of my children, my husband. A few months later, by year 2000, I am pregnant with our first baby. And I come home, and we lived there for a few months leading up to my daughter being born. And by this time, my dad, it's just declining, his health. He lived a lot longer than we thought. He did the chemo, the radiation. I was driving him to appointments. He did all this stuff. His quality of life went down drastically in this last year. He was in the hospital, a different hospital, same time I'm giving birth to my baby in like a neighboring hospital. So as soon as I'm able to leave the hospital with my baby, I go to his hospital. And I'm so excited to take her in and introduce her to him. And I walk into the room, and he won't look at me. And I was like, Dad, I brought you my baby. I want you. And he's like, don't you want to hold her? And he said, no, that's your baby. And so he still had this like extreme guilt for keeping me from my biological mom. And like all that, it has is still affects me. But that was the last time I saw him. And it was heartbreaking. I came out of the room. My mom had driven me there, and I was crying. She's like, what is wrong? And I said, he won't look at me, and he won't hold me. Within a couple months, I moved to Arizona where my husband had gotten a job. And so that was in May. Daughter's born in February, moved in May.
And in June, on Father's Day, his oldest son, my dad's oldest son from a previous marriage, called me and told me that he died in hospice on Father's Day alone. And I was just, and nobody said, are you going to be home for the funeral? It was going to be 2 days later or something. I don't remember. It was something ridiculous. I had driven 95 miles an hour in an old BMW and burned out the engine 50 miles before my new house. I was a newborn. I was I can't turn around and come out there. And he's fucking dead anyway. But it was just this disregard, my mother, I had nobody to call and say, I'm sad about my dad being gone, or to talk to about how much I loved him, because the other people in his life, including his older children from his previous marriage, he had been a bad guy. And to wrap up the sad, the sad part with the first little glimmer of some recognition for it is, a couple months before I lost my biological mom, I was on the phone with her, and she said, the first time anybody's talked to me about him, it was 10, 15 years later, she said, he was good to you, wasn't he? It's yeah, she was. You want to hear the gratitude part, or you have a question?
Babetta, thank you for sharing. I mean, the amount of your life that you just shared with us in 20 minutes, thank you for, in this space, sharing that. I think before we can really jump, and I know there is gratitude, but to jump there, what is often important too, right, is that there is that space, almost that right before gratitude can build, there is that sadness that builds within us, that we hold in ourselves, in our body. And not to say if it's fully released, we won't still feel sadness telling the story. I think it's important when we tell this story that we really let ourselves, as much as we want, to feel the depths of that sorrow. You went through a lot, and your dad loved you. And your dad, regardless of who he was to some people, your dad is worthy and was worth it and was a human here. And you two had love. And that's so special, right? Many things can be true. And you know that. And you know the love you had. And nothing he did that wasn't right or that was harmful to anyone else takes away that special relationship you got to have with your dad. It's really, you were daddy's little girl. Not a lot. That's really a special thing. And you, right down to that one, right? You hit your face at 4 years old, and someone who was an alcoholic stops drinking for their baby, right? That's who he was to you. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
In terms of questions, I mean, there's so many questions in that that I think, right, we can, some out of curiosity, but also it's just, I think you said a lot of really important things regarding a young person, right? Being 11, what you went through, and also having a parent share negative, information that maybe should have gone to a therapist. We learn as adults and as parents, maybe whoa, well, that wasn't for me, right? You're a small human. So thank you for recognizing that and saying that out loud. Mandy, did you have anything to add or to share before we get to the gratitude?
I have questions, but we'll let Babetta talk and
Yeah, go on the gratitude train. Let's get some gratitude.
So, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's been 25 years. So, a lot of life has happened since then. And I've had over and over and like so many points in life where I'm like, oh, my dad taught me that. I can do that. I can change a tire. I can change an alternator car. I can whatever. And even the lessons of like, don't talk about your mother, that way. I've had to incorporate those things in raising my own children. And so it's been in little droplets my whole, the last 25 years. But just recently, he's shown up really big in a really big way. So I was at this crossroads of like moving from this birth and postpartum world into death doula world, and same thing, totally different. And also needing to find some work to do while I build this up. And nothing was showing. I was applying to all kinds of things, like ridiculous. I was getting no's for, servers or receptionists at a construction company. I was like, I'm just looking for something that I can do part-time so that I can be afforded time to work on this business. And nothing is happening. Nothing's banging my head up against a wall. And all of a sudden, actually, both of my parents showed up for me at the same time. I was offered a position to be a creative program director for the Girl Scouts, but that would be moving back to Oklahoma. And that was definitely my mom. And at the very exact same time, this stuff happens. It's nothing. And then these two things show up. And then this sculpture artist out here, I was offered a position to be his assistant doing restoration and maintaining of fine art, both public and private, here in California. And it was a really, really, really tough decision. I didn't want to say no to Girl Scouts, but just logistically, my kids are out here, a lot of stuff. So anyway, I accept this working as an assistant for this artist. And I tell him up front, I'm like, I don't know anything about bronze, or like fixing, but I said I was raised by a man who had me do all kinds of projects with him. And I'm a quick learner, and I really like hands-on. I really like tactile work, labor, really. And it's now been a couple months since I've been working with this artist. And he's probably, 10, 15 years older than I am. So he's not, an old man father figure, but there are these moments every day that I'm working where he's like, okay, can you hand me the vice scripts and the, and whatever, the monkey wrench, the monkey wrench. And I'm like, oh my God, I know these things. And I know these things because of my dad. And this artist is like, you can tell he's a really good person. He's so kind. And I just feel like, because I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm going to stay out here in California with my kids. If I get I also just didn't want to do anything. I really wanted something that spoke to me, that just as much as birth and postpartum had, like something that was really not necessarily passionate about, but that I was in line with. And I just feel like this is my dad being like, it was my mom and I, like, here you go. Pick one of them. And I picked this one, and I am apt for not having worked through my grief with my dad, because it really didn't have, he said, a container to do that in. I feel like that's what I'm doing right now. And it's so beautiful. I'm so grateful for it. Every day I'm like dirty, and it's hard, and I'm tired at night.
Yeah, that's my gratitude piece. That's like, I feel like in a really big way, my dad has shown up for me.
So I think a couple things that you have said are really important. First of all, it must have been so hard as an 11-year-old child being told to keep a secret, a big family secret. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So you're a very strong person for going through that. But you also said when your dad was diagnosed, he wanted a divorce. And basically, he wanted to go live his life as he wanted. And I think a lot of people don't do that these days. Everyone is so consumed with pleasing a person or, doing this or doing that. And like you said, it's not until death affects you or somebody you love, like losing my child, that you really realize how short life is and how important it is to be authentic and tell people what you want to tell them. Have real conversations. So I think those are really good points. And I appreciate them.
When you were 16 when that happened, right? And well, what was interesting, you got it, right? You even said, well, I'm not surprised about that. And also as a 16-year-old, right? Because 16-year-olds, let's be real, they're very, very wise. I actually don't really wise they are till my now 16-year-old is really saying some shit back to me. I'm like, hot damn, girl, you like put a lot together. You're with it. There's almost a better understanding. They're almost not jaded by life as we see things, right?
Yeah.
So you got it. And also, as a 16-year-old, you had to hear someone was terminally ill. I don't know, right? That isn't a given, right? We think until we don't that we all just live until old age. That's just kind of right. The hope and the belief and the way our brains work in the lifespan, we don't, get there. Is there anything you feel you got in how you matured and evolved from how he managed that, from either how you parent or from how you live your life from that?
Yeah, I think I already was developing this I'm going to do whatever I want to do attitude, right? But out of defiance. But I have watched that grow in me as I've matured into I'm going to do whatever I want out of love for myself and how I want my life to look. And I feel like I've done everything I wanted. I wanted to have kids when I wanted to have kids. I wanted to marry that guy that I wanted to marry, and I wanted to do baby work. And now, I'm wanting to do this. And it has also followed these arcs of working through my, for lack of a better term, like childhood trauma. I've had these amazing life opportunities to be gifted. Like, here, oh, you have a adopted baby mommy trauma. Here, you're going to be a postpartum and doula and, birth. And then now walking to this death. I really didn't want to have anything to do with death doula. Like, my mentor had been doing it for a few years and she's much older. She's in her 70s. I was like, that's cute. She's like, don't you want? I'm like, no, that's for your age. That's like, no, I'm good. Because I thought, I was like, I've already had so much death in my life. Why do I want to, look into that? And the universe, God, whoever, just kept going, hey, come over here, come over here. And I'm here, and it's just been like the same thing that the birth and postpartum world has given me. It's this opportunity really, and like meeting you girls and getting asked questions and having space and container to actually talk about these things, about the deaths that have happened in our lives. That has been so, it's transformative. Like, I'm going to have what they say happens after a ketamine trip of these like 2 weeks after our conversation of neurons and these synapses like firing and stuff, just for having even spoken it out loud. That's what I found.
It's funny that I was talking to Crystal about, well, we were talking on when we were coming in here, and I don't know, people believe what people believe. But I think that when you are your authentic self and you put out in the universe what you want, that it does come to you. You were talking about your vision board and you wanted this office. And I just feel like I've noticed it more as I'm older, that I'm like, wow, I wanted that like 10 years ago, and here I am.
It is. Oh, it's absolutely a real thing. I would say I do also believe there's privilege within that, right?
Yeah.
There's absolutely people where I feel like even with all the right thoughts, all the right feelings, all the right wishes, it's almost like this isn't the lifetime for them.
Yeah.
And that's sad. That's what I have a hard time sitting in. Why do I get to have this vision board and have this belief and see things come to fruition? It doesn't for everyone. We don't get to see it happen for everyone in this lifetime. I think it also makes it more important and for those that can to do it, right? To create it and to move forward and to believe in it. Also the universe is so funky. Like how you're a death doula, like how, what, why this, right? How it's almost like there was the plan there for you. And somehow you kept coming back, right? We're on the train and we go this way and that way. And it's like, no matter what, you're going to land here. Why? Right. And like, do you feel it? I almost feel like when the right pieces hit, even if you try to avoid it, when it clicks, it clicks.
Yeah. And that's why I keep having these moments, including where I even had recently some serious multiple deja vu moments within a short span of time. And there are different things to be said about deja vu. Science is like, it's misfiring, and then the hoodoo voodoo people are saying it was like it's something you've already done, or it's something you've already future. But just to speak to briefly, which could be a whole other episode, is why do some people get things in this life and others don't? There's a really great on the Kurt Scott channel on YouTube. There's a great short story called The Egg. They just animated it. It is written by, can't think of his name right now. I can give you all that stuff later. But it is a story telling kind of this idea of that we're all, you're me, I'm looking at you, you're me, I'm you. You pass like whatever. It's just like this non-linear, living of souls, if you will, embodying people and getting to go through the lessons until you get it. Right.
Lessons, right? They repeat until we get it. It's like, here's the pieces again. It looks a little, characters are a little different, but let's see if you're going to get the message this time. And if not, right, you get it again if you're lucky enough. It's pretty incredible to even identify that. Like, oh, this is my turn again.
Yeah.
When you mentioned even the 2 job choices and thinking of mom, right? Because your mom was your Girl Scout leader and you get this offer of this job and then you get this other offer coming from your dad. Do you feel like in those moments with this man you're doing the work with, like, do you sense your dad is there? Does it, like, what does that look like and feel like for you right now?
I don't know that I sense that he's there necessarily, except that he's everywhere. Like the omniscient, just to use God as an example, or the idea we have pervasive in our society of God. It's like this man in the sky, that sees all. Like I kind of feel him in that way. And what's kind of beautiful too is, even though I did a lot of like yard work and gardening and things with him, this artist also has taken this hillside that was dirt and turned it into a freaking jungle of like forest trees, fruit trees and crazy plants and everything. And that's something that I did with my mother. Like we super gardened. I grew irises and showed them. It was a gold winner first, whatever. Who does that? It shows iris. But I'm also getting to do, because I told the artist, I was like, this is a mess over here. I'm gonna help you clean this up, like get these planted. So I am getting to work with like both my parents, but they came in. I'm 100% sure of that, for sure.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And both of them, right? Even with the relationship they had, good, bad, fighting, all of the other things, they both loved you. Say that's true, right?
Well, and that's something took me a really long time. I had a lot of feelings, as you can imagine. I'm angry at my mom, angry, not really ever that angry at my dad. So even when he apologized, I was like, okay, whatever. I'm angry at her. But just a lot of emotions that kept me from appreciating the parents that raised me. I kept thinking in my mind, as adoptees can do, that I wish I would have been with my birth parents because I wanted them so badly. So it took me a lifetime, the second lifetime called adulthood, and becoming a parent myself, I'm sure played a huge role in that. But really appreciating and finding the gratitude I thank God now that they raised me and my bio parents did. I have such a rich upbringing. I am so lucky. I'm so grateful.
And Cass, so within that family, you believed your bio mom was your sister until you were 11.
Correct. Yeah. That's a different episode, Crystal.
Putting all the pieces together. It's like they're kind of there. That's a big thing. And also, Babetta, who you are, all of the pieces of you today are made up of all of the pieces that were, right? So would you say I think you said it, are grateful that it worked out, even where there was anger, even where there was unknowing, right? Like it kind of makes sense to who you are and where you stand today. Those are all the pieces.
Yeah? Absolutely. Yeah. I would be my bio mom, and my bio dad separately went on and had marriages and other children. And I just feel really fortunate of who I was raised by, despite having missed out on my parents. But it took me a long time to get there. It really did. Yeah.
As we come onto our hour, I want to just hold space for your dad. This episode was for, if you could just share his name again and just describe him a little bit as you can, who he was, either for you or just
as a person
in the ways you remember.
Yeah. His name is Kenneth Lee. And he was tall. He was 6'2". He was bald by the time I was born. He had to be in his 60s, late 50s, 60s. Smoked cigarettes. We had this big leatherback wingback chair in the living room that I remember, and crystal ashtrays all over the house. I don't know if they're crystals or glass, whatever, but and he kept his pipe tobacco bedside with his his pipes and everything, and he would read me. We had Encyclopedia Britannicas on our bookshelf by the fireplace, and he would, at the beginning of each of the Britannica encyclopedias, are Aesop fables. And that's what I wanted him to read. So at night he would read me. I had other books, but I remember him specifically would read the Aesop fables. And Aesop fables, for those of your listeners who don't know what they are, they're like these allegorical moral stories and ethical stories, and like how you treat other people and how you do business with people and how you get ahead in life. And that, I think that had a huge impact on, and just the way he was, like you were saying, like, we don't talk about your mother, and I was raised in the South, and it was manners and, everything, like integrity, even though they were lying to me, I was raised with, that integrity was a really, really big deal. And he always wore a button-down shirt and pants or jeans with a belt. There's a little love seat in my parents' room, and his shoes were under it. He would sit down and put his shoes on, like very old people stuff, old school. And always coffee in the morning. And he was someone who taught me how to throw a baseball and mow a lawn. I loved mowing lawns. But we also had a rental house that my parents always had to redo after each rental, and I would go over with him and work on stuff. Like it was a very involved parent. Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, I just want to say though too, gosh, we could go on forever. Like you say that they lied to you, but to them you were their daughter.
Yes.
You were their daughter, biological or not.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah. And it took me until a really big, recent postpartum job with a baby that I was with. Instead of at night, I was with them during the day, and I was with this baby for 10 months. And it was somewhere around month 2 or 3. I'm usually with babies for about 3 months, but usually nighttime. So I'm spending all this daytime with this baby. And I have, for the first time, this moment of clarity and aha, where I go, oh my God, they loved me. It was possible. Because I was like, it's like, I love this baby. Yeah. It was kind of a big deal. It's all coming together. It's taking forever.
It feels that way. And also, I think there's a lot, once it starts coming together, I feel like we get even more closer together. So, like, the pieces are coming. Thank you so much for sharing your story in this space with us. Again, Babetta does have her own podcast that I'm quite obsessed with. I know man as well. You're just a wonderful storyteller, and you really bring people in. And anyone who hasn't checked it out, it's Besidedeathlife. We'll also share it kind of in the notes. Again, grief and gratitude. This is our final episode, Babetta. It was for this season. It was a pleasure to have you on and for you to complete this season with us as well. We're so grateful to build this friendship and relationship with you. Thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back.
Stay tuned. We'll be back this
absolutely.
fall with season 2, and there might be some bonus clips this summer. So
yeah, we're gonna roll through this first season for those of you who have missed anything. So yay! Thank you so much, ladies, for having me on again. I love getting to, you guys can't see their faces, but maybe in the fall you will. But I love getting to see these girls and chatting. It's super fun.
all right. Well, thank you. Bye.
Bye. Consider being a supporter of the show by downloading episodes, subscribing to the podcast, or clicking the support link in the show notes. You can also leave a 5-star review wherever you listen. If you would like to share your story, please message the Facebook or Instagram page. You can also email griefandgratitudepodcast@gmail.com. Tune in next Monday for an all-new episode. This podcast was created to honor the memory of Declan Shaw ONeil and Jennifer Lynn Berry.